We're just getting our PowerPoint up here. We just want to welcome you this morning. Those of you that are joining us here for the very first time from wherever you are, we want to welcome you. This is a program that we started just prior to the pandemic, during the pandemic actually. It was right in, what was it, like February 20th, we started doing these virtual webinars. And we started doing this really because we actually met, in a brick and mortar building, and we would do some training about money and business and entrepreneurship. And when the pandemic occurred, we had no choice but to, rely on other type of technologies such as Zoom. And so we've been hosting these Zoom calls now for the last 3 months, and we feel like it's actually done better, that this program has actually done better, and more people are participating in it than if we actually met in the office. Mainly because there were so many people who wanted to come. However, I'll take that. They wanted to come, but it was just a long drive. Some people couldn't find babysitters, they just couldn't find, ways to get to the office because of work or whatever. So once we put this program together, we're actually taking this call, we're recording this call for everyone's benefit, and then we upload it, and we just started a YouTube channel. So these are some cool things that we've been doing lately, and we feel like the word has gotten out. We started this initially for like 50, 80 people, and then it's now grown, and just typically our Tuesday sessions at night at 6:30 p.m. I'll talk about that here next Tuesday. In fact, we have a special guest that's going to be here, Bill Walsh. He is America's small business expert. And so he'll be joining us next Tuesday. We want you to go down to the bottom, make sure that you register for this event at that link. And it's important that you register because, on Tuesdays, we get our biggest turnout. Saturday, I think people like to hit the beach or go out and lay out in their backyard or do some online shopping, whatever it is. We always get the lowest turnout. It's always been that way for the last 30 years. But Tuesday nights, I'll tell you what, you want to make sure that you get on because we usually max out. Using the Zoom technology, we usually get about 1,000 people. It's the max we can have on that. And then we do an overflow onto a YouTube channel, and we go live on YouTube. So, but if you want to get into the actual webinar and be able to watch it in its entirety, make sure that you register here. Again, next week on, where are we? Wednesday, make sure that you register for this event. For those of you, what I share with you today makes sense, and it's something that intrigues you enough that you want to get more information about. I'm actually doing an orientation for new people next week on Wednesday at 2:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure you tune in for us on that. Again, just take a little picture of that screen and register at bit.ly/AFP orientation. And I just want you to know that all these registrations, it is very case sensitive. So you got to make sure that AFPO is all upper letters or uppercase letters, and then everything else in lowercase. So it's very, very specific as to the actual letter and then size. Next week on Thursday, we've got some product training from this guy named David Yu, regional sales director with an organization called Everett. I think it's something that you want to, So I said, Everest, excuse me. Anna over here beside me is correcting my English this morning. So anyway, so thank you, Anna. So Everest will be tuning in, and you just want to make sure that you learn more about this program. I think their product and what they offer is pretty amazing. And I just want you to know a little bit about me, for those of you that are joining us for the very first time, is my background is entrepreneurship and law. So in the early 90s, my background was law, got into entrepreneurship with my wife, and we started our financial service business. And then from there, we were very fortunate where our company grew and continued to grow, and it's still growing today. It's not like we sold the business, but it still exists today. And that company that we started in the early 90s today has now grown to a company where it now operates in all 50 states. In fact, last night we went on pretty late to do some training with what I call our boot camp, our leadership boot camp. And we had people tuning in from all over the country, literally from the East Coast, from Alaska. And so we're very fortunate that during this pandemic and this crisis that we've continued to grow, which is good news for us, and I know there are a lot of people that are suffering today and going through some tough times. And, we're just extremely blessed that we're not having to do that ourselves. But But we have been very fortunate, and we got into real estate. We own a bunch of real estate, both commercial and residential. And I actually would love to do a webinar and tell you guys, what to look for when you're buying a house, what to look for when you're buying commercial property, if that's something you wanted to do. But, for me, at the end of the day, I think financial services is the best opportunity in terms of business and investing money. I actually did a webinar 2 weeks ago doing a comparison, now that I've actually owned for 30 years, real estate and investments in mutual funds and equities like stocks, knowing what is the pros and cons for both in a comparison. And you can actually go to YouTube and watch that as well. But I also, for us, my wife and I, we did not have mentors. We did not have coaches and podcasts and YouTube channels in the early 90s. It was basically a blind leading a blind and trying to figure out how to get our business going, because we didn't have anyone to teach us about entrepreneurship. But fortunately for us, a book was recommended to us, a book called Think and Grow Rich. And we read that book, embraced the principles of this book, and next thing you know, we went back to the Napoleon Hill Foundation, because Napoleon Hill was the author, still is the author. He's the author of the book Think and Grow Rich. And so the Napoleon Hill Foundation owns the rights still today, the name, the trademark, all that. So we asked them if we could get the permission to make a movie, and we did. So now we're doing these, we did a theatrical release, we did a worldwide release, and then we went to a digital platform. And now, just because of the environment we're in today, just so that we can help out, when you sit there and think about this book that was written in the early 1930s, in the 1930s, Napoleon Hill wrote a book during the Great Depression. So, and what were all the successful industrial giants? What was their secret? What was their recipe to be successful during a time of crisis, that our nation was facing? So to sit there and think, like, what are we facing today? Something, similar. So we thought, well, why don't we release this movie and start screening it? So we started doing these special screenings on Friday nights for movie nights. And then next thing you know, we are now release it on DVD. So if you want to get a copy, go to johnshin.com. In fact, just this morning, a lady named Kim actually texted me and said, hey, where do I get a copy of that movie? So it was great. I kid you not. God, I forgot her. I don't want to say her last name for privacy reasons, but yeah. So there it is. I don't know if you guys can see it, but she just texted me this morning, right? I don't know if it's something that's visible or not, but was it? No? Anyway, not a big deal. But, the movie's still selling like crazy today around the world. And so this book, a new release of the book has come out, Think and Grow Rich. And this book right here, the orange and red copy, is the unedited version, if you would, and then of Napoleon Hill's works. Then we had a black version of it, a Latino version, a women's version of it, and I had the honor to get the rights to the Asian version of this book. And so I wrote this book, have some amazing people in my book, people like Elon Musk, Dwayne Johnson, Vera Wang, Steve Aoki, Jamie Villalobos, and the list continues, right? So this book is now available on an ebook version. We have an audio of this as well on Amazon. It is available for everyone. I really, really encourage you reading it. I know a lot of people have purchased it, but they may have not read it, but you got to read it. I mean, if you don't read something, how do you get any value out of it, right? It's not something you want to just stick up on your bookshelf, because I'll tell you what, the nuggets that I have in this book, I think could change your life. I really do. And so, typically this book on the ebook version was at $27.95, and then they reduced the price. I worked with the publisher and the Napoleon Hill Foundation. We dropped the prices down to $24.95. We dropped it down to $19, $14, and all the way down to whopping $2.99. So it is available right now on Amazon for $2.99. And I'll tell you what, this is only a promo for the month of June. And we did this for the month of June on behalf of my father. My father's birthday is in the month of June. So we did a special on his behalf, and for you, all of you guys, to get this book and embrace the principles and apply the principles, right? And then after you read it, okay, I really could use your help. So here's why I need your help. I really need your help because right now, most people buy things online or on Amazon based on reviews, right? They want to look at other people's reviews. So these are actual reviews that are online right now. And if you've actually read the book and you know, if you could do me a favor and actually go and put a review on it, I would greatly appreciate it. Many of you said that you would, and I'm looking forward to your comments there. So make sure you leave a good message too. All right. Now, after we did the book and the movie, we actually went on a tour. So we went on a tour called the Think and Grow Rich Legacy World Tour. We went to 12, well, our intention was to go to 12 countries, 34 states. But this year, well, obviously, we came to a screeching halt. But I'll tell you what, in just the first year, last year, we went on our tour. You know, we've met some amazing people in our lives, and sharing the stage with these amazing people like Condoleezza Rice, who is the former Secretary of State, Barbara Corcoran, many of you know her as the shark, one of the sharks on the TV show called Shark Tank. Martin Sheen, Martin and I both sat on the Manny Pacquiao Foundation as board members. We met Rob Dyrdek, who's also in our movie. We have Stedman Graham. I don't know if you all know who Stedman is, but Stedman is Oprah Winfrey's spiritual partner, business partner, husband, I guess, under common law marriage. I mean, I don't know. I mean, excuse me. Well, what an amazing man Stedman Graham is. And so Stedman used to be a former basketball player. This is a picture with he and I in my house. Stedman flew out from Chicago to have some conversations about business, and we ended up, you know, putting some things together that we're going to do worldwide. And as a former basketball player, he's a very tall man. He's probably 6'8", 6'9", and a lot of people are going, "Wow, John, you're like extremely tall." I mean, in that photo, you appear to look taller than him. And I'm 5'8", you know, 5'8 and a half, I guess, with some tennis shoes. I guess, will that work, Anna? So, but here we are. This is me standing beside him, taller because that's the purpose. That's why we use folding chairs, right? So there we have Stedman Graham. We've got Steve Aoki, who's got an amazing story. We got Mario Lopez. I've been on a podcast show twice, and he's got a great podcast show called Listen to Mario. Mario and I are now hosting events together. My wife and I both got knighted by the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen. And so that was a tremendous honor for both my wife and I. It's like a story from a fairy tale, you know. And so the things that have happened to us have been amazing. And that's one of the questions we get pretty frequently from people is, how did this all happen to us? Now, folks, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, my intention is not to tell you all these things to be braggadocious. That's not, and wow, look at me, look at what we've done. But one thing I want you guys all to know is that, you know, I want you to dream again. You know, with all the things that are going on in the world, as you're watching the news, or maybe you're on, you know, the internet, you're watching, you know, you're reading papers or periodicals and friends and people you talk to, like everyone, there's so much toxicity around the world. It's not just here in Los Angeles or, you know, California. I mean, this is something that our country has never faced. I mean, we've got, you know, viruses and pandemics and outbreaks and riots and looting and protesting and, you know, real people just who are dying every single day by the hundreds, you know, and thousands around the world. So, you know, and so some people are going into this mental state where if we don't control this, where we got to get everybody out of this mental state somehow, you know, and one thing that would help is if we just shut off the TV and stop watching the news, right? And let it calm down, you know. Whenever you're having an argument with someone, you know, it's best that you just let everybody cool off for a little bit, right? For a few days, in some cases a week or two, just to let things settle. But as the news just continues every day to bombard us with negative news on a daily basis, I really don't think it's serving our nation in any way. I mean, it's just, I mean, we talk about, you know, quarantine ourselves in our homes. I think we need to quarantine the news, right? And just stop. I mean, there's fires all over the place, right? There's all sorts of stuff. So I want you to know that most people have then all of a sudden given up on all their dreams. Like, the American dream has been shattered. It's been hijacked. It's gone. It's become extinct in a lot of people's lives. But I want you to know that it's not. The American dream is real. There are people, even during a time of crisis, that their business is doing well. And so that's why I'm glad that you tuned in. Like some of you may have been praying like my wife and I did. And as we prayed for some answers, right? And so when people say, how did it happen to you? Or how did it happen to us? Well, we prayed, and we asked, send us something, God, like tell us what are you trying to tell us? And, this is where I really believe one of my favorite slides here that I always share is when you pray about things and you ask for things, do you ever wonder that maybe God may be sending you your request, in a different package? Like, what is it that you want? Maybe you want peace and harmony, right? Maybe he's going to send that to you in a different package to all of us. Maybe it's money that you want, right? A lot of money. And I don't think God's going to send you a briefcase with a lot of money, but he may send it to you in a different package. So I think prayer is very important, to have some faith in your prayers. And so that's one thing that I believe that happened for us as we prayed. And I'll tell you what, me and Arlene and I mean, talk about times when we've gotten down on our knees. We as we're crying and we're praying for answers. I think that this call could be it. This webinar could be it. And timing could be it. Maybe somebody had asked you to join us for, one of our webinars for the last 3-4 months, and you haven't joined us for whatever reason. And you're here today. Isn't it kind of amazing that for some reason you're here? There's a lot of things you could do. I mean, it's a beautiful day. You can head down to the beach, and make sure that you social distance, right? You can go to different places, have an event in your backyard and have a nice barbecue. I mean, there's so many things. You could have been sleeping in this morning. I mean, I'm not really sure, but I believe that timing is everything. And in business, timing is everything as well. And I believe that when we started our business in the early 1990s, we recognized a generation of people that were born between 1946 and 64, and these are the baby boomers, right? And so suddenly, as my wife started to study the different markets and what companies were doing well in the 40s and 50s and 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up till now, do you think it was just coincidence that in the 1940s that the companies that were doing well were all all baby related? Companies like Gerber and Johnson & Johnson. And it was by coincidence that the next industry was, Mattel Corporation and Hasbro. And then after that, the next generation was the fast food industry, and McDonald's emerged, and KFC, and then it was the auto industry, and then it was technology, and then it was, real estate. And here we are today, this timeline of, different industries in this continuum is the baby boomer generation having a demand for these products. And so here they are today, these baby boomers born in, 1946, we're in the year 2020. What are they looking at today when at the age of 74? The first baby boomer just turned 74 years of age. So for me, when I looked at this and my wife showed me this, her research, I was actually just flabbergasted that, to look at this and the timing of everything, that for me, it was just like common sense. Like, I am definitely not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'll tell you what, like, I was just like, this is it. Like, we got to jump into this thing. Though it took me a year to be convinced, right? Like, my wife was in the business, in the 90s. And then by 1994, when we met, it took her almost a year to convince me that this was a real opportunity. And a lot of that was just because of my programming, right? It's just the way my upbringing was and what my parents had embedded into my brain and what other people maybe put into your brain and how you were programmed, right? Which was to go to college, get a degree, go get a job and become a doctor, a lawyer. And many of you have probably heard that story. And so that was us. I mean, that was our life. And I want you to know that I believe that the timing to date is financial services, and it still has been for the last 2 decades. And now more than ever, I feel like the need for people to understand how money works, right? Financial literacy, I believe, is an absolute necessity. And so when I look at financial literacy and how many people do not know how money works. Like, they don't know how money works. People don't know the difference between, term life insurance and whole life, or the difference between a Roth or maybe a traditional IRA, the difference between a stock and a mutual fund, or an ETF and a UIT, or what is an annuity, right? Or what is the difference between a CD and a CD? This is an era where people just don't know, right? If I should go buy a car, should I lease it or should I buy it? What are the pros and cons for should I buy a house or should I save my money and pay off all my debt first and then buy a house and have a nest egg of emergency money, right? So some people are just, everybody says, buy a house. And some people just go out there and create more debt and they can't even afford to buy the house, right? But the interest rates look attractive, but you can't really afford to buy the house. Yet you've got $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in debt, and maybe on top of that, some student loans. So this is what I'm so passionate about, in educating people about money, and that's why I'm so happy to have you guys tune in with us this morning. Right now, in 2012, just to give you an understanding where we are as a nation, our nation faces, some serious issues here. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but financial literacy is another one we can put on that list. In 2012, 37 states required financial literacy, required sex education, okay? 37 states. The 4 highlighted states are the only 4 states that required financial literacy. So my opinion, okay, my perspective on this is, if our younger children are old enough to understand and be educated about sex, I think they're mature enough to understand how money works, right? I mean, we should teach them how to go and open up a stock portfolio, right? Or a mutual fund portfolio, to understand the pros and cons of trust, right? Should they all have one? What is a trust? What is an LLC or an S corporation? Things like that. Look at the progress we're making. Now, here's the good news, is we're making progress. The bad news is it's very slow. In 2015, we added 1 state, which is Alabama, right below Tennessee. You don't know your geography very well. And then in 2020, you'll notice that we highlighted Iowa and North Carolina. So, we're in our entire 50 states, only 7 states right now require financial literacy courses in our school system. So this is why I want to work with all our all our government officials on a bipartisan level. And I think that we need to teach people what I call the 6 steps to financial security. 6 steps. So these are the 6 steps. Number 1 is increasing cash flow. Managing your debt, folks, that's like cancer to you. You got to get rid of all your debt, right? The other day I was talking to a pastor with one of our associates named Catherine, and, he had said, John, people who have debt, that even in the scriptures, right? Our Heavenly Father says that being in debt is a sin, right? I mean, that you should not be in debt. And so, but that's in the scriptures, just so you all know. Those of you that are that have faith, I'm not sure what your faith is, and I respect all your different religious beliefs. I am of Christian faith, so I do believe in the Holy Bible. And so, not that I'm here to preach on a Saturday, but it was awesome for the pastor to remind us of that, and so here we have an emergency fund, and how important it is to have an emergency fund now. I've been preaching to people to have an emergency fund for the last 30 years, and suddenly now it just dawned on people now. Suddenly, as a pandemic occurs, they're like, man, I better start an emergency fund, because I don't think that this is over. We might have another major outbreak, and maybe it's going to happen in the fall. Who knows? I hope it doesn't. But if it does, are you financially prepared, right? Or are you going to be in a place where you would be financially devastated, right? Because you didn't prepare after your first experience of a pandemic, okay? Proper protection and having long-term savings for your retirement. Pensions are now extinct, right? They're like, the only people who get a pension is if you work for the government, right? So it's like the government offers it, so we'd be, all want to go work for the government. But the private sector today, they've shifted that burden to you, for you to go put money in a 401k plan or a 403b, or perhaps your employer doesn't even own one of those or offer one of those. So you've got to go on your own and open up an IRA, but you don't know what it is. So how do you put money in a 401k and blindly put money in one of these plans and you don't even know what it is? So again, that's like my passion, is to educate you guys about those things. Number 6 is preserving your estate and protecting yourself from litigious litigations, lawsuits. Last night we had a great session. A good friend of mine named Armando Gil was talking to our elite boot camp business leaders, right, about lawsuits and how many people. I love what he said. He said in the very, very beginning, he said, broke people don't get sued. The ones that get sued are the ones that worked hard to build up a business, the ones that have a home, the ones that have a savings plan. And some of you guys think that maybe your Roth IRA is protected from litigation or lawsuits and judgments and creditors, and it's all state specific. So depending on what state it is, some states it is to a certain level, other states it's not. There's something called a homestead, right? Have you homesteaded your house? Things like that. So these are all things that we think that you should be aware of, and knowing, your rights and how you're protected in all these different programs and products. Is your life insurance policies protected? Is the cash value inside your life insurance policies protected, right? What if you bought a life insurance policy, right, and you thought that you were going to, upon your death, that your children or whoever you designate as your beneficiary would take that money, right, and survive on that? What if a bunch of creditors came in and took that from you, or the cash value? Is that protected? Again, those are things that we want to teach you. When you're sick, where do you go? You go to a hospital, right? You go to a hospital or your doctor. And as you're talking to your doctor, a primary care physician, your doctor tells you that you should go see a specialist, okay? So you go to see a specialist, and you go to a Kaiser, let's say, as a good example, and you got all these different ologists at a hospital. They kind of have every doctor, every specialist inside their hospital, okay? Which is so efficient, and I love their program and their platform. Well, when I saw this in 1996, when our first child was born in 1996, that's when it dawned on me that maybe we should create a financial hospital, right? And so that's exactly what we did. And so we created an organization where you can come, and we've got the answers to all your different kinds of loans, right? If you need money for your business, money to buy a house, money to buy real estate, money for personal loans or whatever it is, we have those. We also got into merchant processing. We got into property and casualty insurance, right? EPLI and business liability, malpractice, E&O, all these different programs there. We got into different types of insurance products and annuities and college planning and retirement and investment advisory and tax strategies and estate planning and asset protection. All these things here are all the things that we started working on. And what's crazy is that as a financial advisor rep, I have a duty to talk about all these things with my client, right? Do you know that if I talk about, let's say, insurance to a client, but I didn't talk about a living trust or long-term care, I could get sued for not sharing this information. So a lot of these financial people that are out there today, insurance people and other people in the financial industry, they're only doing one or two of these things at most. And as a result, they could get sued because they're not offering all these different products and services. And so we are way ahead of the game, okay? And we brought the necessity, right, the need that people have versus a luxury, right? A lot of things that people do is a luxury. Look at the entertainment industry today. That's a luxury. It's not a necessity. So a lot of the people that are in the entertainment world, they're suffering right now. I mean, their industry has come to a screeching halt. No one's making TV shows or movies right now, or reality TV shows, because it's a luxury item, right? But I believe that financial literacy is a need. And again, my experience, you guys, over the last 30 years, I've invested in a lot of different businesses. I've got experiences, obviously, in the financial industry, real estate, farming, merchant services, solar panels. I've got gadgets, and just look at the industry, my experience in all this, and this is why I want to take my experience and share it with all of you. That's why I'm so excited you tuned in. Now look, this is one of my favorite slides also. It says here, if you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, some new knowledge or a new side hustle or business, then folks, it wasn't that you always lacked time, but you lacked discipline, right? I hear a lot of people say, John, I just don't have time to start a business. I don't have time to learn anything new. I don't have time to learn a new skill. Okay, well, now that you've been quarantined, and you should still be, by the way, you know, I knew this was going to happen, you know, as we started reopening businesses, that these pandemic, not the pandemic, the virus, you know, as everybody said, it's gotten better now with everyone getting in everybody's grill, in their face lately over the last 2 weeks. Now, guess what? There's now a surge. We've now we haven't gone down. We've now gone back up in terms of the coronavirus. Okay. In fact, certain states that we're going to reopen, the governors have already told them that they're not going to reopen. So, you know, and so this is real. So look, when I saw these people on TV walking around and just with no mask, I just knew this was going to happen. And sure enough, here we are. So now we're back to, you know, kind of going backwards rather than forward. So anyway, so now you're going to have to go back home. You're going to be self-quarantined, and it's going to require you to have some discipline to learn how to make some money and have some passive and residual income. Okay. Now I'm just going to skip this, but you know, not that one is better than the other, but I think that you need to have both passive and residual. Okay. So I'm just going to skip this just for time. But at the end of the day, we've got systems in place. Okay. For the last 30 years, we've been developing a lot of different systems. We've invested in a lot of different systems, and we've got systems on how to run a business very similar to a franchise. We've got the financial format system down, the licensing format system, the personal development system, and now we got the leadership format system. So we've got all the systems down, okay? Now it's just a matter of all of you having a strong desire. In fact, Napoleon Hill talks about in chapter 1 in the book Think and Grow Rich, that you have to have not a desire, but a burning desire. Like you want it so bad. Like you think about it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's kind of like when you fell in love with someone, right? Where you just couldn't get them out of your mind. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like you wanted to talk to that person 3, 4, 5 times a day, right? Like you can't distance yourself from that person. As soon as you wake up, you're texting or calling them, right? Lunch, you're driving to work, you're calling and texting them, right? You're at your job, and you should be focused on your business, but you're thinking about that person, right? It's like that love for the person, right? Your desire, that burning desire for you to be with that person all day long. Well, that's kind of like what you need to have with your business, right? Your purpose, whatever it is. And so we want to help you with that. So today, one of my topics that I want to talk to you guys about is credit, right? Because I think that a lot of people right now, their credit is suffering, you know, and so their scores have gone down. And this is very, very important for you to protect your credit. Now, I really want to encourage you guys to grab your cell phones, because we're going to go through this really fast, okay? Like, I mean, we're talking like I'm going to go through this really, really fast. So I want you to take your cameras, and I want you to take a screenshot of whatever you think is relevant to you, right? So take a screenshot. Now, if I'm going super fast, the other thing you could do is after this, go to YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can see my video there, okay? And I'll upload this particular video on my YouTube channel. So I just want you to know how important your credit score is, right? Whether you're going out there to get a loan, credit cards, line of credit, even life insurance, believe it or not, right? Or if you're trying to get some sort of license, some credential to go out there and run a business of some sort, or if you're trying to get some government programs, guess what? You need to have good scores, right? So when you go out there and try to find a job, people are going to run your credit. So limitations on who can access your credit information. Obviously, you can. Court orders, let's see here, evaluation of a credit transaction, employment, underwriting for insurance. I just said that a minute ago. The determination of eligibility for a license, benefits granted by government agencies. These are all different reasons, as I said, under your Fair Credit Reporting Act, okay? Now, whether you are required to put a big down payment down, a small one, or no deposit at all, just so you know, when you're buying a car, buying a home, everything checks your credit. And I want you to know that you have rights. You have rights and you have protection on something called the Fair Credit Reporting Act, okay? And so under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA, you have protection, but you never knew what your rights were. Now, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is a very complex area of law, but I'm giving you kind of like the highlights, right? And so I want you guys to know that, you know, a lot of times people have filed for bankruptcy, a BK, Chapter 7, Chapter 13. So I wanted to just kind of go over this real quickly with you. You know, when it comes to property or Chapter 7 or 13, right? For Chapter 7, only exempt items are actually kept for under your BK, whereas all property is retained under Chapter 13. For courts, must file docs and attend proceedings for both of those, for Chapter 7 and 13. The time frame is you're out of debt in just a few months for Chapter 7, and for Chapter 13, it's kind of like a reorganization, and it's like 3 to 5 years. You do need to have a court-appointed person to help you determine your budget, okay? And then finally, this could impact your credit for 10 years on Chapter 7, and for Chapter 13 be 7 years. So just take a snapshot of this so that if you do have bankruptcy, we want to start working on your credit report for your bankruptcies. Now, when it comes to car repossession and public records, just so you know, people are getting their cars repoed right now, right? So all those people that had those Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Bentleys and went out there and life was good, right? The last 4 years, people's lives were like, yeah, you know, if we could live like this for, you know, for another 5 or 10 years, you're going to be financially independent. Well, guess what? All that came to a screeching halt. Some people, they're losing their cars. Their cars are literally getting just, you know, taken right off their garage door, out of their garage door. So car repossession will stay on your credit report for 7 years. If you have property tax, liens, or any of those kind of things will also stay on your credit report for 7 years. So these things will all hurt your credit score, just so you all know, okay? And again, as I said to you earlier, you want to make sure right now. I've had a bunch of people send me their credit reports lately, and I've been looking at their credit reports, okay? Now, there's a lot of different credit reporting companies out there where you can get a copy of your free credit report. I think there are a lot, but in my opinion and my experience, I think the most accurate one is one where you go to freecreditreport.com, freecreditreport.com. Now, you can also notify every bureau. We'll talk about the different bureaus. And you can ask, you're entitled to a free copy of it every year. But you can also, on your credit report, one of the things I don't see people doing is adding in your own statement to the file. So important, because, you know, if someone's got a bad credit score and someone's trying to give you some credit, all they see is a score, and they're not going to call you and have a conversation with you, right? They're just going to look at your report. And maybe you had a medical emergency and like you were hospitalized, you're going through a bad divorce where it got real nasty, right? Maybe you had a health issue, maybe you had COVID-19, maybe you lost your job, whatever it is, you want to explain that, right, on your credit report. And you can actually do that and by manually just go into the website and you can actually update that. Now, if you do it for one, do it for all 3 bureaus, okay? There's 3 different bureaus. We'll talk about that here in a second. But you want to do all 3 bureaus, because that way, when somebody's looking at your credit report, they'll also see why is your score so bad? What happened here? And they understand that, you know, you had something going on in your life, you know, like a divorce. And, you know, when you're going through a nasty divorce, and, you know, it's unfortunate they have to be nasty, but, you know, when you're going through a nasty divorce, it's just emotionally and mentally just draining, not to mention financially, you know, and depending on what you own and don't have, and you're splitting up and carving up what you guys own. And it's just, I don't know. I wish everyone could figure out a way to just work together and love each other and stay married, you know, and I think the amount of time, now I think it's different if you know, your spouse has got some, some abusive issues, whether it's verbal or physical abuse. I mean, that's, certainly get out of that toxic relationship, right? But if it's something that you can work out, I say to work out a marriage, because, all marriages, whether you have a fight and then you file for a divorce, and then guess what? You end up getting remarried, and then you'll end up getting another fight with that, and then you'll have to work on that marriage. So, when it comes to a marriage, you just have to learn to work things out, right? And to be respectful of each other and to listen to each other, right? And that's a whole nother subject, and I'd love to have a conversation with you guys about that. But please take this opportunity right now and go in there and write a statement on your file for all three bureaus, okay? So let's talk about the three credit bureaus here. The three ones are Experian, you got Equifax, and you got TransUnion, okay? These are the three main bureaus. Between these three, the one that most people will use is Experian, okay? And so typically one or the others, and it's not like every score is going to be the same with the three bureaus. So one might be, 680, and the other one's 700, and the other one's like 640, and you don't even understand what algorithms they use to determine your score. But we can certainly help it, right? No one's going to know exactly how you lose 7 points versus 8 points or 12 points. So we're going to talk about that here and what they're looking at, okay? Now, Experian uses something called the FICO score, okay? And Equifax uses a Beacon score, and TransUnion uses the Empirica score, right? So they all have their own scoring system. So it's important that you understand each one because they're very different, okay? And then at the same time, there's something called the Electronic Fund Transfer Act, okay? And this is fraud for people who have, credit cards, and nowadays people buy these little devices where they can have on their body, and they can just walk by in your wallet. They can just literally like scan and get all the information right out of your wallet or your purse. And so now more and more people are selling or developing wallets and purses where inside your purse or your wallet or your backpack, there's there's a little, they wrap it with something so that inside the bag or your little pouch, so that when people come by with that little device, that they can't extract your data and all your information. So, a lot of people go through identity theft. And one thing that I would tell you to protect yourself is to sign up for a program. Oh man, I just lost my train of thought here. It's a product that we used to sell to protect you. Thank you, LifeLock. Thanks, Anna. It's a program called LifeLock. Okay, now I own LifeLock. I've got it on my parents, my sister, my children, my wife. We all have LifeLock. We used to sell it. I don't think we sell it anymore. We don't have a contract with them. But you may want to just go to lifelock.com and sign up for the program. I'll tell you what, it's an amazing program, and it'll really help you with identity theft. And let me just tell you, more today than ever is identity theft. And that might be another topic on another day. Oh my God, there's so much to talk to you guys about and teach you. But let's talk about how to improve your score, okay? Now, to help you improve your score, there are some things that the credit bureaus, the systems, the computers are looking at. Number one is your payment history, okay? Are you paying on time? And 35% of your score is this, like how late are your payments? How much do you owe? How many late payments do you have, right? How recently were those late payments? Now, if you've got a late payment like 5 years ago, honestly, most banks, even today, even though you have all these derogatories, most banks to buy a house will only look at your last 2 to 3 years max, okay? 2 years, typically 3 years max. So if you got something like 5 years ago, I wouldn't waste your time on the 5 years ago. 6 years ago, let me just tell you something. Most of these derogatories also at the end of 7 years, as I said earlier, will fall off your credit report anyway. So why waste your time? And most banks aren't even going to look at those things, right? Even your credit card company, anything you had 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they're not even going to look. They want to know really what does your life look like today, right? What is your paying ability right this second? So payment history is very important for the last 2 to 3 years, okay? The next question is how much you owe. About 30% of your score is how much you owe, okay? So this is something very, very important. I watch some YouTube videos and I hear people on the news. Sometimes they come out and they say they're credit experts, and they'll say things like, pay off all your debt and cut them all up and cancel all your cards. I 100% disagree with that, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. So your credit is based on your amount owed. The 30% is not based on just one card. Are you with me? So let me just tell you something. Let's say that you owed $9,000, okay? But your credit card was only $10,000 credit limit. You're using too much of your credit. In fact, they say that you should probably only use, about 30% of your credit limit. So if you have a $10,000 credit card, you should only be using like $3,000 of that, not $9,000. Now you're really over leverage yourself. That's going to bring your score down. So what happens is, I know this is going to sound crazy, another thing you could do is actually apply for another card, right? Because now now you're at 90%. But let's say you applied for another card, and let's say, you got some big crazy card credit limit, and now you're at 100,000, right? I don't know. I mean, don't do that. But let's say you're at 100,000. Now you're only at 9%, and so it really reduced your your loan amount, or the credit amount that you're using. How much of that credit are you using? And so I would tell you right now is, if you can, is to go online, and there's different credit card sites that you can go to, and there are 0% financing programs, right? So, when people tell me, oh, I've got, 18, 24, 26% credit cards, why would you maintain, pay that when you can kind of like refinance your own credit card and go to a 0% financing for 6 months or a year or two, right? So a lot of those things are available. And then when you get those, it'll add more credit, revolving credit to it. And it's just kind of, and then you got, more credit, and it reduces the amount that you owe. I hope that made sense, right? How much of the total credit line are you using? So if you actually had, let's say, 2 cards, and someone said, oh, since you paid that one off, cancel it. Well, you canceled it, but now what happens is now your loan amount or your credit amount to the amount of credit limit, it's now too much. And so don't credit, now I wouldn't, cancel it, but I would probably take the card and maybe go stick it in a safe deposit box or something, right? Or a safe, and not use it. Because if you have it on your body, on your purse, in your wallet, you're gonna probably end up using it. So yeah, so that's that. Next is your credit history, right? About 15% of your score is credit history, okay? So how much is too much, okay? Credit history. Now, so let's see here, hold on a second. This is kind of the same. Yeah, so the paragraph here, we have to fix this, Hannah, right here, because credit history and credit owed is the same content. All right, so let's go here, credit history. So when it comes to credit history, everyone, one way that you can help increase your credit history, which is what I do right now with my own kids and what my parents did for me, is when I turned 18 years of age, my parents actually put me on their credit as a user on their credit. So that actually shows me up on my credit score. So what was crazy is, like, I was only 18 years old, but it showed that I had like 20 years of credit history. So I actually had credit history before I was born. So that actually helped me out in having credit history. And so, like, right now, not that I'm this old, but I actually have credit on my credit report, a credit card that shows that I've got credit history for almost 60 years. Well, how can that possibly be? I'm not even close to 60 years of age, right? I mean, so it's like, some of you guys might say I look like I'm close to 60, but no, I mean, I'm not even near 60 years of age, but I got 60 years of credit history, right? So this is important, and that kind of helps increase your credit score, all right? So next is new credit. So here's the thing, about 10% of your credit score is new credit that you're getting. So I want to caution you that you don't go out there right now and start applying for new credit cards, right? unless you're trying to do a balance transfer. I think that might be to your benefit to do that. But how many new accounts have you established? How long has it been since you've opened a new account? How many new requests have you made in their credit reporting agencies? And applying for too much credit could also harm your credit score. So just be careful that you don't have too many inquiries either. We're going to talk about inquiries here as well, but new credit, also a part of your credit score. Another thing is the type of credit mix, okay? So what kind of loans do you have? So do you have credit cards, retail accounts, mortgage, installment loans? Installment would be like a car payment, right? Like where you go and buy a car for 4 years and then you pay it off, right? That's an installment loan. Then you got mortgages, obviously you know what that is, buying a house. Retail accounts, that would be your, you know, Nordstrom card or Eddie Bauer or Victoria's Secret. Well, I don't know about Victoria's Secret. I mean, I think they're filing bankruptcy, but that's a retail card, right? Credit cards are from the bank, right? Revolving credit. And then there's other finance companies. So I've done this where I actually went to help build my own kids' credit scores, right? I went and got them a credit card, put them on my credit so that they had a long credit history. I co-signed for them, you know, different things. We actually went and got credit knowing that we would get the credit, it would go on their credit report, and then we went away after, you know, like 2 or 3 months, we went ahead and just paid it off in full. So it shows our paying ability as well, right? That we're able to get the credit and we're able to pay it off right away. So whenever we do things like that, we always make sure that there's no early prepayment penalty, right? So it's not like, you know, that I'm stuck like a lease agreement where I got to pay for this thing for so many years. Because all I'm really trying to do is I want to show that there was a credit where we bought, what do you call it? One of those jacuzzis, right? Spas at one of our properties. And God, I couldn't believe how expensive those things were. I think we spent, I don't know, like $15,000 on that. So what we did is the guy, I said, when I bought it, I asked them, I said, hey, do you guys offer credit, you know, financing? And they said, yeah, we've got, you know, 3 years or 2 years of 0%, blah, 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 or whatever. I said, great. So what we did is I put one of my kids on there. I co-signed for my kids. And then next thing I know, a few months later, I went ahead and just paid it off, right? But now there's that credit that's showing up on my kids' credit. They got a loan amount for $15,000 and paid it off in just, you know, a few months. So again, those are things that will help build up your credit. So now the reason I'm telling you that about my kids and all that is not to sit there and go, oh, look at my kids, they got great credit, right? But it's something that you may want to think about is to go and start getting different types of credit, you know, and have someone else help co-sign for you, okay? That someone that trusts you, that you can get a co-sign, okay? Another thing is where you can actually put up money, where you get some cash, put it up there, and then you know, it's like what do they call that, Anna? Where you put your own money in there, and then they give you a credit card. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Anna. See, this is my old age. I forget things. My brain doesn't process as well. But when you have like a 20-year-old brain functioning next to me, it's faster, right? That's why I can't wait to have artificial intelligence someday, AI. But yeah, it's called secure credit. So you actually put your own money in there and get credit, and that will also help you build up your credit, okay? So let's talk about some things right now, you know, to summarize, because I've got basically like 5 more minutes with you, and I don't know how many more slides, but here we go. Let's take some steps to help you reestablish your credit. So number 1, obtain your credit report. Now a lot of you guys, you know, go to Credit Karma. There's other ones out there. I don't think it's accurate, you know. I pulled freecreditscore.com or freecreditreport.com. I pulled up my credit, and then I actually went and ordered the credit, and it was almost like off by one or 2 points. So it's very, very accurate, freecreditreports.com, okay? Not free credit score or free credit report. Anyway, so that's that. There are some other things that you can do is when you pull your credit, go in there and fix some of the wrong addresses, wrong names, misspellings, things like that. There's also, you'll be surprised how you'll actually find accounts in there that don't even belong to you. So you want to make sure that you remove, what is it? Oh, it is? Okay, so yeah, by the way, let's go back here just to clarify. Free credit score and free credit report are both the same thing, okay? And they're all part of Experience, so there you go. Okay, so accounts that don't belong to you, you're gonna be surprised. You're like, oh my God, what is this? And I actually had that on my report that I was like, wait a second. So initially when I saw it, I thought my wife went and got that and then put my name on there instead of her own, and now I was on the hook, right? But it turns out she didn't get that either. So I actually had an account that didn't belong to me. I sent it in, and then they removed it, so that was great. Incorrect public records. You'd be surprised that you might have a foreclosure, and your score is down, and it wasn't even yours. Like you didn't even own a house, let alone have a foreclosure, right? Or a bankruptcy. So things like that. Accounts that aren't accurate, okay? So you might have a 30-day, a 60, or a 90-day that's not even yours, right? Or maybe there's a charge off on there. Maybe there's a collection account, a medical thing that wasn't even yours. So you can have all those removed, okay? And then we're gonna talk about how to remove some of this stuff in a second, okay? So don't go away, right? Accounts listed as closed by grantor, meaning the lender closed the account on you. When it looks like, let's say like I closed some different like retail accounts that I had in the past. I just closed them because I mean, I knew I wasn't going to go there anyway because I'm such an Amazon junkie. So, you know, I just closed them. And I closed them, but it actually showed up that the person who gave me the credit card, like let's say it was Eddie Bauer, it says account closed by Eddie Bauer. It wasn't closed by Eddie Bauer. It was by me. I'm the one who sent a letter. So I wanted to clarify that, and my credit, you know, popped up. Duplicate accounts. Sometimes you see like 2 accounts like in there twice, and it's being held against you, right? Twice. As I said earlier, derogatory marks, delinquencies, fraudulent activity, incorrect inquiries. Like some people pulled your credit and looked at your credit when they shouldn't have. So those are all things that you need to look into, right? So again, I want you to go in there and obtain your credit report. Number 2, I want you to pay off all your debts, okay? So again, very, very important that you pay off all your debts and try to bring all those balances down as quickly as possible, okay? Number 3 is to design a plan to manage your money. So again, this goes to when people say, well, John, that's great. I don't have any money to pay off my debt. Well, you'd be surprised if I started to look at your budget and where you're blowing money. Like people blow money and they start to live on credit, and all of a sudden it's like unbelievable how their debt is out of control. I recently met someone, I didn't meet them, but it was like a webinar thing, and they had almost $300,000 in credit card debt, $300,000, right? And the interest rates were like unbelievable, and this person was stressing out. I was like, you make, I mean, I don't know. I mean, $300,000. I mean, you might as well just file bankruptcy at that point. You'll never get out of debt, right? I mean, unless you think you're going to win the lotto, or if you think you're going to go and get an inheritance of some sort, you will forever be in debt, especially the minimum payments that you're making and all that kind of stuff. So that's that. So other things you guys can do, you guys, is pay with cash. We talked about this earlier. Apply for secured credit. You can also apply for unsecured credit, okay? And then you continue to educate yourself about, you know, credit and credit history. Use borrow credit, which is what I talked about earlier. So this is what I did for my kids. And then, as I said earlier, you guys, don't ever close your credit cards, right? Even after you pay off your debt, do not close the credit cards. Make sure that you try to use a 30% limit. The max you should use is 50%. And if you're going to go and pay down any credit cards, pay down that 50% down to 30, okay? And until then, don't stop spending. Like, stop going to Amazon, stop going to the malls. We can't really go to the malls now anyway, right? And there you go. And then stop trying to go out there and get free credit. You know, every time someone goes out there and you go to a store and you buy something, they're like, hey, you know, if you apply for credit today, we'll give you a 10% discount off this entire order. And you're like, hey, sounds like a deal. Don't do that, because every time you do that, you get an inquiry. Now, there's something called a soft inquiry, and then there's something called a hard inquiry. Now, soft inquiries are okay, because if you do a soft inquiry, these do not show up on your credit reports. A soft inquiry will not affect your score. This basically looks like you pulled your own credit, so soft inquiries are not a huge problem, okay? However, you know, those of you that go to, let's say, a hard inquiry, those will hurt your score, okay? So don't let somebody run your credit report and just to take a look. If you're going to buy a house, you know, you go to one mortgage guy, and then you go to another mortgage guy, and now you got like 3 or 4 or 5 inquiries. Those are not going to be good, because those will take time to remove off your credit report. And so just so you know, okay, these inquiries will stay on your credit report for 24 months. So basically for 2 years, they stay on your credit report. And you typically don't want too many of these, right? These are, you know, whether you're going to go get a car loan, a home loan, credit cards, student loans, personal lines of credit, all those, including apartment rentals, believe it or not, will have an inquiry there, stay on there for 2 years, okay? And you probably don't want to have more than maybe 6 of those in a given year, like maximum. So look at your inquiries and see. And when you go and pull your credit report at freecreditreport.com, it'll actually show you when the next credit inquiry will actually fall off. So that's kind of cool, okay? Now, if you want to shop for low rates, FICO gives you a 30-day grace period before certain loan inquiries are reflected in your FICO score. So FICO can or may record multiple inquiries for the same type of loan as a single inquiry, as long as they've made within a certain window. And that's, you know, everybody says there's so many, but I would say, you know, 45 days, you know, that you want to start. Like if you're going to buy a car and you're going to shop around, I would tell you to just go to a credit union and get one rate, and just get your loan through them, unless you're going to go directly to, let's say, you know, Chrysler or Toyota, and they've got free financing at 0%. But I want you to know that those 0% financing to buy a car also requires you to, the free financing requires you to have good credit, okay? So just be careful. Like if you got bad credit, don't let them run your credit report, because again, that becomes another inquiry, all right? Now, I did say to you guys earlier, about 5 or 6 of these is the max you want to have on your credit report in a given year, and then start letting those start falling off before you apply for more credit, okay? Now, the Fair Credit Card Fraud Law, okay, you can actually go in there and write your explanation that, you know, you were a victim of fraud. But what I want you to do also is this. Let me see. Okay, so the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act protects consumers from collection agency companies from charging too much interest and altering the sale of the last activity. So other practices, what is that, typo? Other practices include threatening or harassing calls and letters, not properly licensed and bonded. How many of you guys know of someone, or maybe you personally, hey, I'm one, okay, what, early 90s, I had a lot of credit card debt. I was getting these people calling me, like my credit was so bad, you guys, like I was under 600, okay? It was so bad I couldn't get credit to buy me a hamburger, okay? I was just going through some tough times back then. I had student loans, credit card debt. I mean, ooh. And then I met Arlene, and then I find out from Arlene that she had debt also. So between the two of us, it's like we had $500,000 in student loans, and we had like, I think almost $100,000 in student credit card debt. Yeah, we were in deep trouble. So when we started our financial business, it was like, whoo, man, this financial company bailed us out. So now let me just tell you what's going on and how you can fix your credit. Some sample statements of dispute is this, okay? First of all, you can type up a letter. You could do this on your own. Now, look, there are companies that will help you do this stuff, and they're going to charge you money, right? And it could be anywhere between, you know, $1,500 and $2,000 to retain them to do all this work, or you could kind of do it on your own, okay? Now, they've got systems to do this. Like they've got machines and they got people, software that do all this stuff for you. So if you want, you can just pay them $1,500 or $2,000, and they'll take care of your credit. But if you don't want to pay, because $1,500, you could buy a lot of stuff with that, you know, and maybe pay down your debt. You could do this on your own. So you just type up a letter and you say, this is not my account. I've never owned this money to this creditor. Apparently a mistake was made in the reporting. Please remove the derogatory reading as soon as possible, right? And that's it. You know, and then I put, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to call me or whatever. They never call. They're not going to call you. But I put it in there in my link. And then I put my name and I send it in, okay? Then they are legally, okay, we're going to talk about the time frame in just a moment, that they have to remove that off your credit report, okay? If they can't prove it, right? Because now the bureaus are going to contact that retailer operation or whoever issued that credit. If they can't prove it to you, then guess what? By law, they got to remove it, okay? Statement of disputes. On such and such date, I moved to another address. I notified all my creditors, including name of credit card company, name of creditor was slow in changing my address on their file. Subsequently, I did not receive my billing statement for how long. Once I received the statement I paid this creditor, right? And so you can put that in there, and then they'll remove it. A lot of these companies will offer like one time, removal of a 30-day or a 60-day, just because they don't want to get into a nasty, case with you where you're going to hire a lawyer and they're going to get sued for it just to remove a derogatory thing like a 30 or 60-day. Okay. I was hospitalized at a facility. Medical bills were forwarded to my insurance company for payment. My insurance company delayed in paying, and the hospital turned my account over for collections. Afterwards, my insurance company paid the hospital. Right? Again, how is this my fault? So these are some sample statements of disputes that you're going to put on there. During the period starting from this date to this date, I was laid off with work without advance notice. I've always paid my creditors promptly and satisfied prior to, to and since the period. I am now gainfully employed and have been at the same employer since such and such date. So it shows stability now, okay? Then you're going to get a response back and it says, we have changed your credit file as requested. Your credit file will not be changed because, and they'll give you a reason. And then, come up with a different reason and then dispute that, right? The party involved did not respond as of information is being removed by reason of default. So, like when you get a ticket for a moving violation, right? You can pay it and just admit that you were speeding, right? And then go to traffic school and, they let you do that every few years. Or guess what? You go and if you've already had a ticket and you can't go back to traffic school again, then you got no choice. I mean, why not just go to court and see if the officer doesn't show up to court? Because if the officer doesn't show up to court, guess what? You're off the hook, right? So you're gonna make an appearance to court. And you're gonna tell the judge I wasn't speeding. Now it's upon the officer to say that they were using a radar gun, they were driving behind you for so many miles, and they got to prove up that you were actually speeding. Just because you got a citation doesn't mean you're automatically guilty, right? Unless you just go online and pay for it, then we know you're guilty. So you could dispute that too, right? And if they don't show up, then guess what? You win. Well, it's the same thing with your credit report, right? If the people who put that derogatory on your credit report cannot prove that it was yours in the first place, then guess what? They have to remove it. And a lot of these retail operations and credit companies, they take their data and then they go and archive it some center, and then they got to go and dig it up. And that takes time. Or they don't have the manpower. Like right now, I don't know, I think it's a great time to go and dispute what's not yours, right? Because they don't have the manpower to go in there because everybody's quarantined and they're laid off and they can't get to the warehouse where the old hard drive used to be, or the archiving center, it's like closed. So now is a great time to go and dispute a lot of these derogatory things that don't belong in your credit report, right? Now again, one guy who I think is very reputable, he's based out of Georgia, is this guy right here. His name is Marvin Smith at DKR Credit Repair Group. This is his direct phone number, okay? Now, when you call him, he's going to go, who are you? Who referred you? Just say, hey, John Shin referred me to you, and I think Marvin and his company is one of the reputable companies out there, and make sure that Marvin takes good care of you, right? Whatever price he gives you, don't tell him I told you this, but you may want to work on him and negotiate the price. Whatever price he says, don't take that. Always negotiate that price and work him down a little bit. But I think Marvin is probably the best one I know of, a very reliable source for you to get to do this, okay, for you. And again, he's going to charge you, right, somewhere, I don't know, maybe $1,000 to $2,000, right? But look, if you can do this on your own, you have the right to dispute everything that's on your, hey, you got a collection account? Dispute that. Write a letter, say, this collection account is not mine. And then they're going to say, okay, well, now by law, the credit bureau has to go to whoever, the hospital or wherever, whoever did that thing, and they got to prove that they have to show the invoice, the bill, that it was all theirs. A lot of these people right now, they don't want to deal with this stuff. Man, they're worried about what? Survival on their own. Like, how are they, going to pay their bills right now and survive this virus and, whatever. So I hope that made sense to you that, and for those of you that are part of my boot camp, if you need some help with this, I'll help you write these letters, right? And help you submit them. And so there you have it. So look, folks, if what I shared with you today, right, you felt like you got some value, you learned something, and next time we're going to talk about other things, right? Look, I want to help you make money, okay? So I want you to get with the person who invited you today and get more details about how to make more money. And I'm talking about, like, when I say make more money, I'm not talking like an extra $500 or $800 like online eBay type thing where you're working and exchanging time for money. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making like lots of money, right? And I mean like lots of money is like 6 and 7 figure type a month. Okay, a month. That's the kind. Now some of you guys are like, what? That's like too much. Okay, well then, all right, then why don't you just settle for a year? Okay, but I want you to get with the person who invited you to learn more about how to make more money. I want you to go get more details on how money works. Tune in with me every Tuesdays and every Thursdays and every Saturdays, and I'm going to teach you more and more and more. As I said, I want to talk to you guys about now asset protection and protecting yourself from lawsuits, right? There's so many things I want to share with you guys. It's just not enough time. I wish I could just nonstop go 12 hours with you guys. I don't know if you guys have the endurance or the stamina. Let me know if you do, right? Read some good books down here, 3 books for you to read. And I love these books, right? This is more about financial books. I also have books on mindset, right? Cash Flow Quadrant, Magic of Thinking Big, my book, How Rich Asians Think. Go and read it. It's the weekend, right? Go listen to the audio. Get the ebook today, right now. Go do it. Don't say you're going to do it and never do it, because then you forget. You get caught up in your own world. Right now, go to Amazon and get one of these books, right? And then next week, I'm telling you, you don't want to miss Bill Walsh, right? Bill Walsh is going to drop so many nuggets, so many bombshell nuggets. You don't want to miss them next week at 6:30, okay? So tune in. And again, next week, I hope to see you guys with our orientation. I'm going to teach you guys how to get started, how to make money, and more importantly, I want to show you guys how we get our clients, okay? Where do we get all our clients from? Because we don't have a system for cold calling. We are a non-cold calling business. Where do we get our clients from? Tune in next week on our orientation. I'll tell you how we do that. And then, of course, next week, product training, and then Shintastic Saturday. So I hope to see you again next week on Saturday. And I just can't thank you guys enough for your desire to continually joining me every Saturday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and giving me the opportunity to share with you, I think, which is tremendous, tremendous value. So, guys, have a blessed weekend. Have a productive Saturday. Enjoy the sun. You're going to have to get out there and get a little bit of sun, okay? Because if you're not getting sun, you're going to go into a depression, and you need to start stocking up on some vitamin D, okay? So, okay, well, listen, I see there's a lot of questions here. So let me just answer a few of them. I don't know if we can get to all of them because we're a little over time. So let's talk about questions. How many cards are too many? Well, how many cards are too many? It's not so much like how many cards are too many. It's really look at the revolving credit limit, right? So does it make sense to have the revolving credit limit, So I would say that's one of the more important questions that you should look at. You might want to have a gas card, this card, or whatever, but let's take a look. I mean, some of you guys, I've had a lot of people in the last 2 weeks send me their credit reports, right? And you can send it to my email. I'll look at it, and I'll tell you what you should do, right? And I'll help you fix your credit. All right, and by the way, if anybody wants to, I'm not going to sit here in front of you guys and tell you what I know what I'm talking about credit. I got proof in the pudding. I mean, I've got my own credit score, and all my scores are over 800. Okay, so I've got great credit, so I know what I'm talking about, right? So there you have it. Doesn't rental payments get reported on credit report? No, rental payments do not get reported on your credit report. So Now, wait, okay, now if you have an eviction, that is going to go on your credit report, but the actual rental payment won't go on your credit report, okay? Next one is, I believe you can also go to a few bank deposit money. Okay, well, this one, Steve Herseg actually said, I believe you can also go to a few banks, deposit money in a secured CD for $1,000, borrow a loan against the CD for $1,000 finance, and then 6 months later your score will rise. So great advice. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Steve. Let's see here. When do you cash advance but pay off a billing? Okay, this one says, when you do a cash advance from credit card but pay off on your billing cycle, is it going to hurt your credit score? The answer is no. Okay, as long as you keep the credit limit low. Like I said, maximum 50-30% would be ideal, okay? If you have an old credit card like Chase Slate and you want to transfer the Chase out, will this change you and affect your credit history? No. If you want to do that, go ahead. As long as you're going to a lower interest rate, it would make sense for you to do that, okay? Judgments against me, can it be fought? Oh, yeah, absolutely, okay? It can be... judgments against you can be fought, and I would fight it all day. In fact, by the way, guys, you want to know that's something that's also cool that most people don't know? In the old days, the IRS, if you had a lien from the IRS would actually lien your credit report. Like it would say, IRS lien. Well, new legislation passed, and now IRS liens cannot be put on your credit report. So if you actually had an IRS lien, it cannot go on your credit report, okay? Now, it'll show up on, like, let's say a lien on your property, okay, if you had a house, and so you'll see it in the county recorder's office, lien for whatever, IRS, and they'll put the lien on your house. But the IRS now and the state of California or whatever state, franchise tax board can no longer put those things on your credit report. So I should probably put that in my PowerPoint. New legislation is actually pretty cool. Okay, so it won't ever show up on your credit report anymore. And if it's on there, now you can dispute that and all your IRS liens will go off your credit report, okay? So if you have any questions on that, reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you type up a letter so you can actually submit that to the bureaus and have that removed off your credit report, okay? Oh, that's how good I am. I just answered 18 questions, okay? No, Anna did the others. So, guys, I hope that helped you guys out. And I don't worry too much about your credit. Like, let's start working on it one step at a time, right? Like there's no reason to stress out and lose sleep over it. It is what it is, right? You've got the dings on there, and now it's just time to start working and repairing it. And it'll take sometimes up to 6 months to repair. But hey, at the end of 6 months, if we work together and get this done, then you're going to have a great credit score and something for us to celebrate. And I'll be happy for us to go out and celebrate it in and out with a double-double. All right? Hey, God bless everyone. Take care. Have a productive weekend. Be safe. Social distance. And we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.